Hello everyone, my name is Murat Karstoğlu. I'll be your host presenting from East Bay, California today. I am joined today by our new technology partner, Cloudian, Senior Director of Products and Solutions, Sanjay Jagat. And also on the call today, I have my teammate, Vishnu Ita, leading engineering of Kubera for backup and DR functionality. We'll go over, we'll have the demo together. During our session today, you can ask your question in the Q&A section, and after the presentation and the demo session, we will try to answer your questions. And again, after the webinar, you can always reach out to me and Sanjay and Vita over either social media or also on OpenEBS channel on Kubernetes Slack. Before we start, I'd like to give a shout out to Data on Kubernetes community hosted by Demetrios. MayaData is also leading the efforts in building a community for data on Kubernetes, and then DOKC is a self-organizing group of curious operators, engineers, SREs running stateful workloads and data-intensive applications on Kubernetes. And Data on Kubernetes community this week had their third meetup with Nihil Chandrappa from Yugo by TB, another MayaData partner. A great conversation on running a distributed SQL on Kubernetes. And next meetup will be held on August 11th, and will also feature our valued community member, contributor, also long-time user Ren Lee from Arista Networks. Ren and Demetrios will discuss balancing high availability with cost. Here is a rough outline of what we are planning to talk about today, creating backup and DR strategies for Kubernetes. And then we already passed this phase. Well, stateful workloads are more accepted on Kubernetes now, but when it comes to the secondary operations and securing these workloads, a lot of compliance, security, and retention policy type of questions are asked. So we'll try to answer all of that. And then Sanjay and I will talk about our partnership and MayaData Cloudian data agility vision. And we'll go over some of the use cases, but closer to the end, we'll spend 10 minutes on demo, getting some workloads, stateful workloads back up to Cloudian S3 target, and also use that backup to migrate workloads across clouds or even storage vendors. So as we present, you will probably notice how Convoy's law has manifested itself within our organizations, helping us to form small, autonomous, agile teams. And data agility is in the core of all tools we built at MayaData with OpenEBS, Litmus, and then Kubera as a platform itself. Our goal is to make reliability engineers, SREs, and developers' life easier, accelerate your pipelines. That includes providing necessary infrastructure parts and testing tools. And most of our existing enterprise users are actually providing that feedback to continuously improve Kubera. And before we start, if you're not familiar with the Kubera platform, I want to go over very quickly, and some of it touches to our topic today. Kubera is a data agility platform that automates some of the day-to-day operations, and then helps you to turn Kubernetes itself to a data layer but at the same time, once you put Kubernetes in production, you can use Kubera to get support, and Kubera can run on SaaS and on-prem. Functionalities include of course, Kubernetes topology, data visualization, but also very common component and stack of Kubernetes logging and managed logging stack and logging storage, as well as data resilience components, including backup and disaster recovery, which we will talk about more today. And from here, so very quickly, I will introduce this and then pass the microphone to Sanjay to give us some insight on benefits of Cloudian MayaData offering together. And then this architectural diagram you see, and then it goes back to granularity. Kubernetes, we moved monolithic applications into microservices, and then each application has different requirements, and some are replicated by nature by application like Cassandra, Kafka, or Elastic itself, and may not require a highly available storage. And in that case, using granularity of OpenEBS, you get a flavor of local PV, CFS local PV, or even now a replicated local PV. But for other application requires a block replicated block storage. OpenEBS provides other storage engines, and CStore, Jiva, and now MayaStore underneath. And then you have all of that, and then once you also once you need it, and then to add an S3 on object storage, that's where our partner Cloudian comes in, and you can dynamically, in a cloud native way, also use Cloudian S3 operator to get a on-demand object storage bucket using the CSI operator. And also, if you have an existing Cloudian appliance, you can expand the use cases by using your existing Cloudian appliance as a backup target for cloud native applications. And now I'll pass the microphone to you, Sanjay, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Murad. And I think, thank you everybody for joining us. I think you gave a nice overview out here. And I really want to start off with acknowledging the partnership of Cloudian and MayaData. I think it's great to work with MayaData along with the DOC community and be able to contribute to this emerging trends of this cloud native applications. Like, you mentioned this, and I want to just quickly highlight how the applications are evolving. Like, these monolithic applications are getting modernized, and new cloud native applications are getting built, and which are very distributed in nature, right? And this is where a solution like Cloudian with its proven platform is very relevant. Like, Cloudian is an enterprise-grade object storage solution built on S3 APIs, and is already proven for various use cases in the existing ecosystem, be it backup, analytics, Splunk, and so on and so forth. But for cloud native application, it brings in a unique value, because now you have the ability to match a distributed cloud native application to a distributed storage platform. And like you mentioned, right, give you the granularity that would be required for different services to access the right storage through APIs and be able to leverage Cloudian through our S3 operator. We are working very closely with the community to release our S3 operator, as well as working very closely to integrate Cloudian into the more Kubernetes framework, right? One classic use case is this backup and target. And today we're going to talk a lot about data protection. So looking forward to it. Next slide. Talking about data protection, right? We we all realize and know that data is a lifeline for many of these businesses today, right? Data drives a lot of this business and innovations, and protecting that data is very, very crucial and very, very important, right? Data protection in this uncertain time, especially in these times right now, is more vulnerable for various reasons, right? You obviously have a lot of phishing attacks and different malicious activities that are been happening in terms of how the data is being attacked. But one big thing is ransomware, where you have now these malicious actors who are basically getting hold of your data and be able and encrypting it so that you can they can prevent the recovery of this data. One of the statistics that has been come out of this thing is why and how ransomware is becoming such a big issue is, they are attacking the secondary copy, the backup copies, right? It's very vulnerable in many ways, and that's where people have all their assets laid out. And if you can prevent backups being used, now you have taken control of the data. So protecting your backup copy equally is very, very important. And talking about protection, if we go to the next slide, we talk about the challenges, right? You have to make sure whenever you talk about data protection, you're ensuring that you have the adequate access controls. First of all, you need to make sure that you have all the bookkeeping done, right? So protect your data. Access controls for your data and records are done correctly. You have all your user rights and access controls maintained. You also want to make sure that, if you are meeting requirements around GDPR, privacy, those are all things that are part of data protection, and you need to be able to comply with that. The bigger part of data protection and compliancy is worm storage, right? Where you are preventing people from accessing and manipulating that data. In the case of ransomware, if it was a worm storage, what you now have is that, and even if people got access to that data, they cannot encrypt it, they cannot change the data, and you can still be protected. So if you take worm storage, if you secure the access to the storage, and if you make sure that you have the right integrity levels, you now have a solution that allows you to meet some of these challenges for data protection, be it your traditional applications, be it your cloud native applications, be it your Kubernetes applications. The fundamental layers of data protection don't change. And that is where Cloudian comes in. And this is where, if you go to the next slide, why a lot of people rely on Cloudian to give them the platform that gives you the robust scale of data platform, as Murat was talking initially. There are many reasons why Cloudian is preferred by a lot of our customers. One of the basic ones is we are the single most largest independent object storage solution in the market. We offer native implementation of S3 and offer the highest compatibility of S3 APIs. That is very, very crucial, especially if you're looking at cloud native workloads, where most of these cloud native workloads are born and built in the cloud, right? They build on those APIs, they build on assumptions that you have very distributed access, you have read many access platforms, and all of those rely on standardized APIs. S3 has become a de facto standard when it comes to data APIs. And with Cloudian's robust APIs, we become the perfect platform of choice for a lot of these workloads. Not only that, we have the ability to access the storage and serve file protocol access like SMB and NFS on top of objects that allows you to now connect to Cloudian object storage via those protocols, convert those file data into object and object into file, giving you that portability. So in case you still have legacy environments, you can still continue to use those file protocols and be able to still take advantage of the Cloudian distributed scale out object storage platform. Talking about scale, when you're doing, sorry, Murat, can you go back? When you're doing a development, right, you want to start off small. And sorry, can you go back to the previous slide? You want to start off small and then be able to grow that environment as you shift your application into production. So Cloudian allows you to start small and then seamlessly grow into that same environment, into your production environment, and can scale up to hundreds of petabytes infinitely, right? Non-disruptively, still maintain your global namespace, still allow you to have distributed across multiple sites, and so on and so forth. And as we saw in the architecture for cloud native applications, those services are distributed. So having the ability to now do granular multi-tenant buckets where you have different buckets with different policies set up for different services allows you to now control how those services consume this storage and still serve different SLAs. This is what makes the Cloudian platform suitable for storage. And then you add features like worm, security, encryption, hybrid cloud ability to tier to the public clouds, and various ways of protecting data across sites and site failures and data center failures. That's what makes it a perfect target for a backup target, right? And also combine this, you have now a unified platform that can be served for development as well as backup and data protection. This is why people and customers prefer Cloudian. And this is what makes our partnership with MayaData very unique and very advantageous, because we have the same synergies, right, Murat, where we are trying to meet the requirements of scale applications and different use cases for Kubernetes-based applications. Talking about security, one of the things I want to highlight is, right, security is not just the ability to do access controls. Whenever you're talking about the modern native in a distributed applications, you're talking about distributed access. So you need to have access controls. You need to have IAM integration so that you can have integration into different authentication mechanisms, as well as federated access if it's needed for your applications to access that particular data, ensuring that the right application, the right user is accessing that data. And then have abilities like encryption, worm, audit logging, so that you can make sure that, in case something is not right, you can go back and check on it and make sure that who was this malicious actor and quickly act on it, right? Cloudian supports worm. As we said, we are certified with different certification agencies like SEC 17A and German and Swiss regulations that allow us to be consumed in the most demanding regulatory environments. We are FIPS certified, common criteria certified, supporting the highest possible crypto engines so that it can be deployed in the most secure way, and gives you a complete software-defined package with scale and security inbuilt. Going to the next slide, the value and how Cloudian is different, like I've been saying this again, is having the ability to support an industry standard S3 APIs and have robust APIs gives you an ability to now say that, you can move away from the traditional proprietary solutions and avoid the lock-ins, right? All of your user management environments are built, all your data management is built on S3 APIs. You can seamlessly grow your environment, be it your traditional applications, be it your Kubernetes environment, be it your cloud native applications, or if you want to do a hybrid cloud, you now have the ability to grow their environment and meet all those requirements in a single enterprise grade platform that offers robust security, access control, worm, resiliency, data protection, and then can grow as your workloads and demand grows. This is what makes Cloudian different. And we are super excited to be working closely with MayaData as we start looking at ways of integrating more and being able to deliver complete value end to end. Security is very important, as you might have seen in all the different various news articles nowadays. And this is why this particular webinar, we are very much focused on the data protection aspect of it. Murat, you also have similar reports and data on your side that showcases why security and data protection is a primary.
And then especially in the government and finance sector, and adding health into that as well, increasingly we see these topics discussed, and now we came to this phase, second day operation. Backups are getting more and more important, and then this increases the value of our partnership.
Exactly.
And then from here, I want to also highlight these two new articles recently published. One on NewsStack about cloud native backups and disaster recovery on Kubernetes. As applications and the way we deploy them has changed, also how we think about backup is also changed. And then we no longer take a full node backup or VM backup, because as Kubernetes schedules workloads and pods, and then also storage on different nodes, you cannot guarantee that backup you take or a pod you take backup on one node is going to be there in the next 10 seconds. It is all dynamically scheduled, and also the environment itself, the infrastructure itself changes quickly, Kubernetes version to version, or the application. Although stateful workloads have persistent data, by nature in Kubernetes, they are also stateless. Data has the state, but application themselves, they can be upgraded, and then that makes the backup a bit more challenging. And then that's where we, with Kubera and backup strategies, come in, because everything is from application down to all other components. Everything is, all the flows are keeping the application first, and we will see some part of it in the demo as well. And from here, let me go over these use cases very quick, and then I will ask Vita to help me explain some of them. On Kubernetes, especially, well, cloud native way of taking backups, we see a couple of use cases. Multi-cloud, hybrid cloud is increasing, and stateful applications needs to be agile in these environments as well. As data has gravity, so that makes migrating or moving applications across different platforms more difficult. And actually backup, we will see how it is executed, but backup helps to fluently migrate between multi-cloud environment. And also another trend, Kubernetes and application upgrades. We see increasingly in many user and environments, instead of upgrades, actually users sometimes this can be even a daily deploy new Kubernetes clusters and bring their application on top of the cluster instead of upgrading, because upgrades may take a multi-stage and then puts production to risk. And simple backup and restore scenarios. So before diving into the use cases, again want to highlight the value of Cloudian and MayaData partnership. Granular cloud native workload and data protection is increasingly becoming more important, and enabling DR and on-demand capacity expansions as well from cost point, both in storage in production and backups as well. So because you pay for what you provision, not for what you use in cloud, being able to expand it on demand when there is application demand is highly valuable. And of course, security, as Sanjay highlighted, regulatory compliances, HIPAA and other FIPS compliance increasingly becoming topics that we discuss with our users. Vita, can you help our guests to understand some of the use cases we focus on with Kubera and backups?
Sure. Thanks a lot, Murad and Sanjay, for taking our audience through the cloud native backups and what this Kubera integration with Cloudian provides to the organizations. So with that, I would like to get into the use cases, and the first one I want to pick is the multi-cloud. So which is in the rise, as Murad explained. So here we have organizations try out their apps and workloads in one of the environments, and then they want to move to the different environment, basically the on-prem clusters or a different cloud based on the data gravity or whatever reasons, like they tested, they verified the things in the cloud and they want to move to on-prem or vice versa. So that's where due to the data gravity, the amount of data with the application, and then it's difficult to move the entire the workloads. So here the Kubera provides by making these applications backup along with the data into a object location like Cloudian. So and then on the remote clusters, the way we want to get these applications along with the data, then again Kubera helps you to restore this application along with the data. So here the point is it's a cloud native backups where it's not just the data is backed up and then user takes care of with the application, but if the Kubernetes, as we know, the application just comes up, the PVs also are connected, and so here the Kubera takes care of populating the data when the volume when the application comes up in the volume itself. The next one use case is about the upgrades. So usually we'll be having our production setups in like very standard or tested environments, and as it's getting in use, like more and more time it takes to, and then by the time releases are happening on the software or the Kubernetes side, but and we want to upgrade to the latest ones to get the new features. But the point is like we need to take the pain of like going multiple steps of upgrades, and instead the better way is like have a new cluster with the latest version or the new version of the software, and then once you have this setup, now our applications can be moved along with the data from the old cluster, I mean the older version of the cluster to the newer version of cluster. So here as well, the Kubera helps you to back up the data to the Cloudian, and then from there we can get restored to the new clusters. So the next use case is about disaster recovery. So till now what we talked is about like where there is a lot of data is getting backed up, and then at some point of time the users organizations want to move to the different clusters for the various reasons which we discussed. But the point is like it can take some time to restore the data. So the Kubera is coming up with a new feature called as the streaming backups, where the backups as taken on the source cluster. So now the destination side, I mean, there will be one more cluster where we are ready with the data, and I mean, as the data is copying, when the new data comes in, that as well gets copied, and finally the shift can happen from by switching down one of the cluster, and then all your data along with the application is available and ready to serve for the users. So the next one is a simple backup restore. This is the very basic part of the cloud native backups, where each we have a lot of workloads running in the cluster, and we want to just move few of them without impacting the other. Like this is so we don't need to back up the entire VM, or we don't need to back up the entire data store. So we look at a workload, the volume which it is using. Kubera takes care of what it is doing, and then what the workload is using, and then it backs up. And then similarly with other use cases, like it can be restored to the different clusters along with the data. So in all these cases, we have the Cloudian, where we have the SaaS version of it, and also on the on-prem versions can be used even for OpenShift and internal to the on-prem can be deployed, and it has a warm support where, and also the encryption support, so that your data is, your backup data is also safe enough. With that, I hand over to Murad for taking us through the demo.
Thank you so much, and this was really useful, Vita. And so we had an earlier session of webinar for a different time zone. I hope I cleaned up my cluster. So what you are seeing here is a Kubera, actually on-prem version of Kubera running on one of my Kubernetes clusters itself. It gives you overview of your clusters in terms of storage activities, but what we want to focus today is some of the use cases Vita helped to explain. And then you can see I have two clusters. You can have more here, but one cluster is on AWS on 117, the other is on GKE. So what I would like to show you is accessing one of my cluster. Kubera has a application discovery feature, which is very important because everything is done from application perspective. And then I have few application. It's a small cluster. I placed it for demo purposes. And you can see it detects persona, cockroach, and why this detection matters is based on the application behavior, you get application-focused functionality when you dive into each application, and some of them includes suggestions and things like analytics. Just by one click, you can enable analytics here, and that gives you specific Grafana dashboards looking into that application, which is probably a different topic. But today we will focus on the DMS. Stands for Data Migration as a Service, and where you create backup strategies. And on this screen, you can see your data history or a backup strategy, and then this backup strategy shows hourly full backups and 10-minute incremental backups. Status is active with the retention policy, and I'm gonna go over the new strategy creation and walk you through how this is configured. And from the start, DMS backup and NDR strategy supports any storage provider, but also detects if OpenEBS is used, especially CStore, because CStore comes with some copy on write benefits, which makes your application backups more efficient, faster, and also takes less space because they are incremental. So it detects that this is on CStore. And but if it wasn't, so you can actually use this backups and restoration to migrate your application across different vendors. Let's say was previously deployed on AWS GP2. You can take a backup and then restore that backup on OpenEBS or object bucket on Cloudian, and this really helps with some migration use cases. Let's look into the backup strategy now. So we have Cloudian as a target provider, and you can either create new, store your credentials, or use one of the existing ones. I am gonna need the target address. So using this S3 endpoint, and then you pick of course the region where you want it to be stored, US West 1, and want to highlight these two here. So when using regular backups, not CStore backups, you get this incremental backup intervals as well. So I like to take a backup every 15 minutes. And then, since this is going to be incremental, the restoration will be performed also as incremental, and you can guess if you have 100 incremental backups, the restoration when walking backwards, restoring will take also that many steps. That's why we also have this full backup functionality. Accelerates your restoration. So meaning every, let's say every day or every week or every hour, every 2 hours also take a backup. And when you restore, this really helps then because the incrementals start from the full backup and after. So that reduces the number of incrementals that needs to be restored. So and then retention count sometimes needed for audit, regulatory purposes to retain longer backups, or maybe you only need the last 5 or 10 for one or the other reason, and you can limit to save some capacity. And then once you create, it creates the schedule. And I want to go back to the application here, look at what is inside the strategy. So you click on the strategy. Since this was created earlier on our first webinar today, you can see number of schedules. So they are each showing the full backups. And then since this was full hourly and every 10 minutes after, I have a couple of incremental backups here, and I will restore one of them. But before we do, let's go to our target cluster, which is infra test here on GKE. And as you see, there is no Cockroach DB on this site, only Percona. I hope I cleaned up, otherwise it should just succeed. Let's find our application again and DMAS and the strategy here, and we would like the latest full backup, and from here picking the again latest backup name. Before we restore, let me show a couple of other things. And one of the needs and requirements of cloud native backups, it actually not only the backup of data. You can see this Cockroach DB actually it was a stateful set and has 3 persistent volumes, and volumes are each around 70 GB. And you can see the files stored from the structure. Probably you can tell this is actually a Velero backup with our integration. And this means you can at any time go to your target location, look at the buckets. This is, I'm looking at the name here, BGI, KG. This was stored in West backups. You can find the backups and then with their date signature. And from any cluster, actually connect to this target and be able to restore from these backup content. And the last one before we restore, I would like to highlight this also. In resource list, you can see it's not only the persistent volumes, also the configuration and everything associated. When you take a backup, you create the labels and everything matching that label is also part of this. You can see the service is also backed up, and PVCs, pods, and PVs, and everything related to that resource. So let's go back and execute this. So our target was infra dev, and actually source was infra dev and target is infra test. One thing I wanna talk about here, which makes it 2 different use cases. So you can restore the same workload on the same cluster if it is corrupted or accidentally upgraded or deleted for any reason. And that makes it traditional simple backup and restore functionality, but at the same time, if you lose the cluster completely for any reason, or could be a cloud vendor resources going down, your backup is still available because it's stored on Cloudian and not associated or locked into your specific cloud vendor. So you can use that backup with Kubera to in a disaster recovery scenario and recover it to a new cluster, which in this case I'm gonna recover it here. So, and then after this, you can see that the progress bar, well, this part all depends on, of course, the target cluster's resources. So what Kubera is doing here, checking the requirements, pre-flight checks, and then restores the volumes and using the same storage class creates the storage and then restores the application, of course, and then this will now incrementally. So first full backup, which was hourly, will be restored, and after that, because my retention policy was 5. And then this full backup, after the full backup, there are 3 incremental. They will be restored as well. It will complete soon. And in the meantime, another cool functionality I can highlight here at the same time. Topology view. So you can get a live view of things while it's getting restored. You can see we did not have cockroach on this. Maybe worth zooming in. Cockroach DB on this platform, on this Kubernetes cluster. Now you can see it just appeared here with the PVCs and then PVs, stateful set, and 3 pods. And before I go back to application, so one thing here, you can also do many cool tricks. One of them is taking snapshots and cloning this data here. Another is, of course, you can dive into application logs for troubleshooting here. My pod is still initializing here, but that's also, and you can see we had Percona before, now Cockroach DB is appeared on this side. Going back to our slides. So some of the other functionality you get with Kubera, one thing, well, friends don't let friends store their logs on the same cluster. Logs are something that you need when things go wrong, or also we use it day to day for predictive analysis of logs in advance. But so Kubera stores, Kubera has a managed AFK stack, and which you can use even with the free account. You can use Kubera to store your logs, and when in any disaster scenario, clusters are not accessible, you can access to your logs. And on top of it, you can use Kubera to turn your Kubernetes into a data layer by managing, deploying, provisioning OpenEBS, and with different storage functionality, breaking cloud locking, similar to what we are doing for the S3 part with our partner Cloudian. And then this part I touched a bit, topology. You can also get into log view, live log view, and access to your pods. In the last part, we talked about data protection and DR. So you get much more with Kubera. So you can sign up today to get the basic and then standard subscriptions. And in the basic and standard, so everything in the Kubera and what we are doing at MayaData is based on open source, and we also contribute to many other CNCF projects. So MayaData is one of the top and one of the only, I think, independent companies contributing to CNCF, top contributors. So with the basic functionality, basic subscription, you get pre-flight checks and provisioning, OpenEBS, everything that you would need to have a successful POC. And then standard adds on top of it with topology. We use active health checks, multi-vendor data management and backups like Cloudian backend support, and as well as additional functionality getting soon like CSI lifecycle management. It is not only OpenEBS. So in Kubernetes, we see mixed environment. You need to take care of your AWS volumes or GCP persistent volumes. So maintaining CSI drivers becomes a challenge too, and Kubera will take care of that too. And then with the enterprise, which most of our large enterprise users are, you get air-gapped and on-prem, unlimited team size, longer log retention, and additional enterprise functionality like Active Directory and authentication.
Thank you, the MayaData team, Murad, and the rest of the team, Veta and Vishnu, and looking forward to a lot more working closely. So thank you very much for everybody who joined. Please reach out if there's anything else that you need